Everyone loves setting a good New Year goal, but not everyone knows how to do that with their partner in tow. So today we are going to walk you through the best way that we have found to set goals for the new year with your spouse or partner.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about how awesome you are and how fun.
This could be a long post.
No.
Long podcast.
How fun you are. You're so fun. You are fun. But how fun it is to set goals with you. In fact, this is actually another thing that helps people powerfully couple together in life and business, but it's how to set goals for the New Year's as a couple.
Fun.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, if you have no direction, you have no direction. And even worse, actually, one of the great pitfalls about setting New Year's resolutions or any kind of like goal, especially if it's entrepreneurially or life goals and you are married and you have a partner, like is not cluing your partner in on what your goals are.
Right.
Or deciding for them what you think the goals for the family should be or the business or whatever. And
you're mad at them because they didn't support what they didn't know you wanted.
Yeah. Yep. So this is kind of like, should be like a fun workshopping experience that you do together. First of all, fun being actually the key word.
Yeah, but you got to go in. I'm going to encourage people to go into it because there's probably some goals you set. I'm thinking back to us. So when I say this, or people we've mentored, and some of you are like, yeah, I keep dragging these same goals from year to year to year over. And I think one, you got to frame it up to say what's going to be different this year. Is that goal still even important to you anymore? Because you might need to change it up. You might need to freshen up. You might need to cut some things loose, change some things. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's just a higher commitment.
Maybe you have too many too. Like if you've set enough really important goals for the year, deciding on which ones are the most important. If you achieve these by the time of the year is done, like, is that enough? Some people they have
it's got to be things that excite you. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. So I think some of the times we set goals that we write them down and I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really achieved a goal because there's a difference between setting goals and making a task list. And if I look at that, I'm like, yeah, I checked off some to-do list things that I've kind of framed up to be a goal when all it was a damn to-do list that was maybe took a little more energy. But in reality, it was just a to-do list. It was going to get done regardless, most likely anyway. Your goal should really excite you about the possibility, well, could be the probability, depends on where mindset you come from, of them coming to fruition at the end of the year or the end of whatever the time frame is. They need to excite you. I think that's number one.
Well, first of all, as a couple, doing this as a couple, I think is like, it's the when. When do you do this together? You know, in my mind, we have friends that like do take like a trip at the beginning of every year. And I think that's amazing. And I would love to do that. And we have a lot of moving parts with having a lot of kids, not that other people don't, but we have yet to make a trip out of it. If you can, I think that's super cool. However, just creating space for it, like for us, it tends to happen on a date night. What I do know is that when for you and I to sit down as a couple at the start of a year, it typically is not going to happen. That appointment or that date for us to do together, it's typically not going to happen here at our home.
No.
Like we need to be at a coffee shop, or sometimes it is more of like a business meeting feel. You know, sometimes we're going to that coffee shop and we're sitting down and saying, this is the biggest priority right now for this week. We're starting a new year. What do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish together? What do we want to accomplish separately? But I do prefer to be at a nice dinner or something of that sort, like in more of a like chill dream state. Like I really, you know, your whole year, your weeks, your months tend to be pretty urgent and task oriented. Like for me, this is something that when we come together, do this, I would, we have actually gone to Sedona, I think a couple times to do this, but I would prefer to be sitting back and, at my favorite restaurant or favorite spot, if I'm not pregnant, with a glass of wine in my hand and really dreaming and talking it out. Like we've got 12 months.
Yeah. That's
What's
like dream
super
casting.
important?
That's not strategizing or anything. What you're saying, it's just kind of dream casting. And I think that, to your point, makes it more fun. That part of it. Because strategizing can be overwhelmed. I like strategizing.
Well, setting goals can be stressful.
Yeah.
You're talking about dreaming up things that you have not yet done.
Well, they can be, yeah, but I don't,
it can be. I think for a lot of people, honestly, it is, because you're talking about, it may require something you don't possess yet, a skill you don't possess yet, a, mindset or something, that you have to grow into.
So I think you go into the mindset, I think where things started to change for us, and I'm thinking about now as moving into 2023, there's a few things that I didn't check off, I didn't move forward on personally. Then it's like, why is that? And I know why. So now it's like, well, do I move them into the next category or not? But what I'll say is, to your point about getting together, having fun with it, is you have to go into it with the mindset of, if I was not to fail type of mindset. You're just having fun. And if I were not to fail, what does that look like? Dreaming, you know what I'm saying? Because if you come with the filter, or like with it didn't happen, or that couldn't happen, or you start questioning, you can't put that in front of it or with it. You have to come from a place of enjoying, man, it would be nice.
Yeah.
I want that. Or we want that.
Yeah.
And what would that look like? And you can kind of start just having a little fun conversation, like you said, over dinner with it, not strategizing, nothing like that. Just letting your mind kind of run.
Yeah.
What would it look like? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you go into it and you start thinking too much about why it didn't come true in the past, or why it's going to fail, or why you can't, or what's that going to look like? I don't know. And all these doubts come in. That's not fun. And you've been doing that cyclical pattern year after year after year. Let that go.
Yes.
Like you said, enjoy it. Painting the picture.
What were some things that you felt like you had to let go of?
Everything I just said.
Yeah. Everything you just said.
That's what everything I just said. And I think, I know, it's just painting the picture. And I used to use that with clients all the time. We owned a gym. I used to sit down with them and I would ask them, if you were not to fail, what would your goals look like? Well, first, I'd ask them what their goals would be. And then it typically was always settling. You're always settling. Everyone is always settling. So I'd set them up. I always like to set people up for their good, for their own good. And then I'd say, well, let me ask you, if you were not to fail, and they had an easy button there and you pushed it, what would that look like? And they'd get a smile on their face. They'd be like, they look at me kind of like, oh, you got me. That was a settling goal. Well, if you put it that way, you frame it that way, well, I'd really want this. I'd really want that. And they'd start naming things. And that's what changed in our life, or my life, was the framing of it.
Yeah.
Then your mind starts to get excited about that, because you allowed it to think of something that you really, really wanted. And you let it attach to that, and it can get excited about that. And as a couple, you can learn a little bit about each other too, on what's really motivating. You throw a few things out there and you see, where do you align on some things, and y'all really can tag team them as a partner to make them come true.
And I think, learning some things about your spouse, there are going to be things that your spouse may want to accomplish that aren't, or don't seem like they're of interest to you, or may seem unimportant. But learning to be interested in your spouse and what they deem important
I was going
or
to say,
special is
you have another book in you that you want to write. That has no involvement with me, but I'm interested in it because you write well, and I know it's going to be a good product. And 100%.
Yeah. So that's fun. And then coming together to see where everyone kind of plays a part too. Like you're so good at framing up the big picture when I'm setting big picture goals or a year goal. Like, I just feel like sometimes I'm just putting stickers on the wall. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. And that will be nice. And you are so good at setting that bigger picture goal for our business metrics. Like if we were to, quadruple our business or X, Y, and Z and help other people do the same thing. Like, and then what I like to wrap my mind around is, okay, well, what does that look like this month? You do such a great job at setting that bigger picture goal for the numbers and the metrics and stuff that are going to matter in our life, in our household, and our investments. Like you have goals that are important to me. I just don't know they're important, like your investing goals, real estate goals, just like, different things that there are endeavor, but you are actually, at the helm of making these things happen. And you've got a vision of why these things are important. That just goes right over my head. But it doesn't mean that it's not important in the grand scheme of things either.
Yeah, but I think to that point too, though, is there's some people that maybe they're working together as a couple and neither one of them have that ability. So I don't think they want to get overwhelmed with that either, because I was just about to suggest that, and this won't relate to all people, this will scare some people or deter some people or discourage some people potentially. Is I frame it up in you can categorize it. Hey, what are my health goals for 2023? It's simple stuff. What are my relationship goals? What is my spiritual goals? What is my financial goals? And then I like to put in what experiences do I want to have? Like last year I wanted to do rappelling with the kids. So I made sure I put rappelling down and we went rappelling in Moab. It's categorizing them. But for some people that just overwhelms, because then they got this exhausted list of a lot of things and they're staring at it and they're like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. So I don't think that's for everybody, but we're fortunate that you and I work differently, but we can lean on each other.
Yeah. We want similar things, but yet operate
frame it up differently.
Yeah. And that goes back to our other podcast, another podcast that we recorded about dividing and conquering, and owning your zone and your strengths. But this is a wonderful area to practice that, because there will be similarities. There'll also be similarities, like similar goals that you both actually want. You just speak it in different ways. I always found that interesting when I pause to see, you thought a lot of income, like we need to be making X amount of money so that we have the ability to have these experiences or da. And I just thought experiences. Like I thought, I'd like to move out of state. I'd like to be able to do these things with the kids or afford these things. Well, they were all the same thing, but we just spoke it in different ways. So when you're sitting there and you're dream casting or goal setting for the year with your spouse, the other thing is to be open to the fact that you do want the same thing. You're just maybe speaking it in a different language.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
That book, what Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, and then ultimately having those, like I love having that on just a sheet of paper and knowing that's like, I keep notebooks for certain things. I love my notebooks, but knowing that's there and reflecting upon it as a reminder of where are we at today? What are we working on this week, this month? How close are we to reaching these goals? Is pretty fun too, breaking that down. And
I was going to say that it should be fun and exciting. And if it's not, I'm really going to encourage you to push pause and question that. Like, why is this not fun? Why am I having anxiety about it? Why do I feel it's a to-do list? Like, if you already go in to feed it and from a negative frequency, I'm telling you, it ain't happening. Yeah. Like, it ain't happening. Like, it's not. Yeah. Like, you have to change the way you go into it, the way you frame it. The frequency you go into it is so important. It's got to go in with, because you've already made it be. What's that quote? Whether you think you can or can't.
You're right.
You're right. That's it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people listening that probably need to just change that, and it'll change the trajectory in how they perform in 2023.
Yep.
It's important.
Yep. And to feel good about doing this again, like the following year, you should have regular you can call it a business meeting. You could call it a date night. If you're going to do it on a date night, it needs to come back to more dreaming, talking, less accusation of who's not doing what.
Well, let me add to that, because you probably, before I lose that thought, is it's also to go into it. Shoot, lost my train of thought now because I didn't want to lose my train of thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought on that.
You know, it's fun to do this at the beginning of the year, but this is also a reason why over 80% of people that set New Year's resolutions don't reach them, because they have this one dreamy-eyed session where they're just thinking about all that they want to be and do, and can happen, but then they don't do any follow-up to it. And the thing is, you're going to catch momentum from pure excitement of it being a new year, coming off of the dream session, being in alignment as a couple, if you were able to do this in alignment. But just like the momentum and the excitement fades from setting fitness goals or any other goal that you might have, guess what? Same thing happens here. So it's so important to set regular follow-up meetings to the dream session. I would highly recommend 30, 60, 90 days regularly, where you are looking back at your goals and seeing, are we on track? Like, are we on pace? Not pointing the finger and being like, well, because you didn't do this or whatever, just taking full ownership of the areas that you can take ownership for. And I feel like those meetings are best over like business meeting, coffee, because those are the ones that can get a little hairy sometimes, because you are sometimes you are behind on your goals, right? You know, and hitting your goals actually happens because you are willing to course correct and often. So that's not the type of thing that I typically would recommend for couples that aren't used to working together to do over a date night, because you want your date nights and everything to remain fun. But over a cup of coffee and just truly removing the emotion, and it's an assessment of, how are we doing? Are we on track? Am I owning my zone? Are you owning your zone? Like, let that person answer. Course correct where you need to course correct and keep moving on.
I like it. Yeah.
Did you get your thought back?
No, it's faded. Blew away with the wind. It wasn't important, I guess.
Dang.
Gone. It was close.
I felt like it was good. Felt like it was going to be a good one.
It was amazing. I know it was. It was earth shattering. It was life changing.
It was meant for you to feel, but not to say.
It was
apparently
life changing for sure. No, I think the moral to it all though is it needs to be fun and exciting, and it doesn't mean you can't carry over goals to the new year, but maybe you need to amplify them a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe the goal is a little too small.
Truth.
And you need to forgive yourself and give yourself grace, but also not be naive enough to think that things don't need to change.
Absolutely.
Like if you have the same goal and you're bringing it along, give yourself grace going into it. That's fine. Maybe you need to expand that goal a little bit more to excite you. Give yourself grace. And then maybe write down why didn't it happen in 2022 or 2021, whenever it was established, and you're carrying it over to the new year. Because it's all right to carry it over. But maybe you do establish it. I wouldn't do this at the initial one, like you said, at dinner. Maybe you don't get into that. Maybe you do. Depends on how mentally you're okay with working through that. But maybe that's a second conversation, because maybe you need to stay in this feel good dream state at first of just flushing it out and being in that frequency. I don't know where you are. Yeah, I'm gonna flush it probably out on, okay, yeah, let's do this. I'm hungry for it. But why didn't it work last year? Oh, because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, am I willing to change that now? Do we have the bandwidth? Yeah, I can change and I want to. And then that's important.
That's so good, because blame, if you're in a relationship where you find either of you are in a position where you're blaming often, blame is a character issue, not a conditional issue. And it can be retrained. So if there's blame going into it, then it's just to honestly have some self-awareness that, hey, when I talk about these kind of things, life things with my spouse, we tend to get into arguments. It's probably lack of ownership and more of finger pointing and blame than anything else. But then here's bringing it back to the fun part. Celebrate. Yeah. Like, celebrate every little win, every single win.
That's actually was my thought. Wait for it.
Why?
Wait.
What?
No, that's not exactly it. Wait for it.
I'm reading your mind.
It was that maybe when you're going into, I almost lost it again, son of a bugger. Way too much
get
on
so
my
excited.
mind. I bet I'm going to lose it. I lost it.
No,
I'm joking.
I'm holding my breath.
Joking. No, I think this is important too, because depending on what your mindset is, it's important. Maybe not, but maybe you do have to acknowledge some wins that you had this year. Meaning, because you're going to just be hard on yourself earlier and you're going to say, well, I didn't hit this goal. I'm just carrying it on to the next year. I'm just going to
set goals for this year when
you need to go affirm a few things that you did improve on, that you did do better. Because I guarantee what you look for will expand.
Yes.
What you focus on will expand, however you want to say it, spin it. So maybe you need to give those affirmations to yourself because you'll overlook it. And then that sets you up to a much positive frame of looking at things to set you up for your goals for 2023. It wasn't as earth-shaking and life-changing as I thought that thought would be.
Wait, no. That was.
But I think it will if you actually use it. If you use all this stuff, it will be.
Because you can't go into a dream session feeling like a failure, thinking you're going to accomplish big goals in 2023. So
tell you,
get out of the I'm a big fat failure mindset.
You got to be on a whole nother frequency, man.
Yeah, get out of the blame mindset. Get into the, hey, I did do this one thing for myself, or likely, to be fair.
Yeah.
You probably did several really great things. You're just not giving yourself credit for it. And you can't wait for other people to give you credit. You have to give yourself credit for the good things you're doing.
That's what I'm talking about.
So actually, I do think that was very...
It was worth the wait.
It was worth the wait. I was holding my breath. Now I can take a deep breath and be like, yes, that's exactly what we needed.
Thank you for bringing it home, Harold.
Yep, wrap it up. Pretty little bow on top.
All right.
All right, friends. This is so fun, and I just want you to remember that you do deserve to live the life that you desire. So go out and create your new American dream.